is Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, who's a combat naval aviator, a fighter pilot. He was Commander in Chief of the Western Naval Command, served as the flag officer commanding the Western Fleet in 2000-2008, commanded 4 warships, and works with several think tanks and has just returned from China, where he is a visiting professor at a Chinese university. Admiral, welcome to Global Express. We're very honored to have you on board. I'm going to start with asking you the question, where as a naval veteran and a strategic analyst who's been intimately involved in assessing our defense deals, what do you think will be the biggest takeaway from the state visit of Narendra Modi to the US this week?
Well, thank you, Neena, for getting me on your program. Really very grateful and happy about it. I look at it in a slightly broader perspective, that it is India's stature and its importance in the Indo-Pacific as a provider of peace and stability. It has been recognized. And therefore, the importance which is being given to India, apart from Indo-Pacific, particularly in the Indian Ocean region, it's quite remarkable, because all these days, the Americans were of the opinion that the Indians are in the Russian or a Soviet camp. I think they have got over this historical baggage, and they have realized that India is in nobody's camp. It's quite an independent, and it exercises strategic autonomy, which became quite obvious even during in the present Ukraine and Russia crisis. So I think identifying India as the peace and stability provider in Indo-Pacific is the biggest takeaway from this.
That's a very interesting point. Yeah, but is what the US offering us aimed at not just keeping China off our back, but it's also nipping away at China's power, and its challenge that it poses to the US, which China believes is a declining power.
Well,
isn't that an issue also?
No, I think what you're saying, that's very much for the US. That is in the US interest. But it so happens that when we give peace and stability in the Indian Ocean region, by being stronger, by being more powerful, both economically and militarily, it also helps in ensuring free and open sea. And every global common can have a free passage. Nobody should interfere. Nobody should stop them from doing what they're doing, which is the global commerce, and therefore help the prosperity of the world. So here you will find that in many issues, India will be in convergence with the US, and on many issues, India will be in divergence. And it is bound to happen. We will never be having convergence on every issue. But in the Indian Ocean and Indo-Pacific, since our broader aims are identical, there will always be convergence. So that is where we are. We are having a convergence with the US thought, but in the Eurasian landmass or in the continental strategy, we are not under convergence. We are in divergence, and it will remain so.
But isn't that, a danger also? I mean, on our long land border with China, we do have a problem. We had the Galwan ingress. We had a face-off with the Chinese troops, and the challenge that is posed by the topography and the climate to the Indian Army, stops us patrolling now up to the point that we could patrol till. Now the US is offering us, we're not offering, we're now buying 30 Predator drones, which will be able to monitor the Chinese better, But will we then be risking an actual armed confrontation? Because these Predators do come armed with bombs, don't they?
You're right. The Predator has got 2-3 versions. There are armed versions. They are completely reconnaissance version. I think on the land border, Predators will generally be deployed in a sort of human locating radar role, if you like. Any movement of the troops or any big, the platforms like the tanks or artillery guns, whenever they move, Predators should be able to identify and locate. Now, till you declare a country belligerent, you cannot go about firing and dropping bombs, right? The rule is that only when we are a defensive force. We don't attack because we don't have any intention of grabbing somebody else's land. Like some of the expansionist approach we saw in the last 2, 3 years. So what is going to happen is that we are in a better position to respond should there be a confrontation, should our troops be under attack, should our, the area, our integrity, what is called the territorial integrity is being breached. When all that happens, then you have a platform which can respond immediately. You don't really have to use your human force, the troops, to fight them off, but you can also use your predator. And mind you, it's not a very heavy bomb. After all, it's only it's a small aircraft, if you like, and it can carry only so much of weight.
So it's like a pinprick.
That's right. And to be very honest, it is better used in a warfare where people are hiding behind certain obstructions, and they're about to come into your territory. For example, the terrorist groups who infiltrate from one side. If there is a very similar thing, that there is a likely infiltration from the passes on the Himalayas, this will be able to identify, and the troops will be warned that on so and so passes there is a likely incursion. Be absolutely alert. So that should prevent a full-fledged war, a full-fledged skirmish from erupting into a bigger violence.
So it's very interesting you should say that, because Pakistan has been sending these drones across our border too, and they've been dropping drugs and stuff like that across the LOC. So the LAC is at one level, and it could actually work for us in the LOC as well.
That's correct. It can very much. It can work on both sides. Idea is that you describe a line. In fact, let me just take you back some years ago. Where did this drone culture start in India? The 26/11 took place, and obviously we all cut very sorry figure, particularly the maritime forces, because the Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists took the sea route and they came to Mumbai, and they successfully engaged us for next 24, 48 hours.
And they blended in with the people of Mumbai. That was the most shocking thing of all. They knew exactly where to come in. They knew exactly how to catch a cab and how to get to these various hotels. That was very unnerving.
Yeah, it's not surprising. They don't look different. They come, they take a cab and go. After all, in 1947, prior to 47, it was all same India. They're all Indians.
That's true.
So
That's true.
nobody will suspect. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, nobody's going to suspect. Even
Admiral, the bit that you brought up about that, how they arrived in Mumbai is very, very interesting, because I mean that really our West Coast is actually not policed the way it should be, right? I mean, or the way it could be, to put it in a different manner. Is this U.S. The Predator drone, the purchase of these Predator drones, going to change that?
Well, that's precisely what I was bringing you to. When the post-26/11, the meetings were held in the Cabinet Committee of Security, Navy said, I do not have that kind of asset to guard 7,500 kilometers of coastline. So they said, what do you want? He said, you give us drones which can keep watching these areas all the time. And that is how earlier the herons were bought, which could fly for certain hours. And it could also give you picture of the entire coastline and further. And then, there are 2, 3 more types of drones were bought from Israel. But they had some limited range. And heron was
ones that we deployed in Kargil, was it? Is that correct?
That's right. You're right. And then when this happened, then the army thought there will be utilization for them as well. And then the Air Force also pitched in saying that we also need it, because we have air bases very close to the border. Oh, fair enough. So some of it was given to the army, some of it was given to the Air Force, and majority of it, even now, it is coming to the Navy. Because you have 2 million square kilometers of exclusive economic zone of India, in which Nobody else can use it, exploit it for economic purposes without the prior approval of the central government. So you have more drones deployed so that you don't have to use the manned aircraft. You don't have to use so many ships. Even the two Predators which are already with us on lease, they're with the Navy. They're operating in the southern Indian Ocean. They're not with anybody else. This is the first time that the Army and Air Force will do.
So this report that came through of a Chinese submarine that was lurking somewhere in the Indian Ocean. We saw it. We saw it. We tracked it because of these drones that we had. And is that correct? And going forward, will we be able to this undersea tracking devices that we've been promised by the US? I don't know exactly what they mean, whether they're submarines or what. Could you tell us something about that?
The Predator or any drone, it does not identify anything below the surface of water. Because below the surface of water, you require equipment which can detect sound, underwater sound. Okay. And for that, the equipment has to be inside the water. And therefore, you will have what is called the UUVs, the underwater unmanned vessels, just like small submarines, or they are like small propelled ones, or as the Chinese call it, a glider. What they do is they drop large number of these and they control the movement from a central submarine. Some mother submarine will actually control those.
Oh,
and
I see.
Yeah, and then it will pick up all the sound returns, and they will decide, and they will fix the position of some other underwater object, which could be a submarine. So in 2013, when first time the nuclear submarine came into the Indian Ocean, we didn't have this kind of equipment, nor did we have drone, so that we could pick it up on the surface. Now, just to tell you that the archipelago, the Indian archipelago, Andaman Nicobar, and the Indonesian archipelago, there are certain small passages through which the ships and submarines can go through. For example, you heard of Malacca Strait. You heard of Malacca Strait?
Right.
Then Lombok Strait, Sunda Strait, Ombai Batar. These are all places where most of the merchant ships, they come through these areas. And that is why the Chinese have a problem. They know what they call is Malacca dilemma. Malacca dilemma is all about the Chinese having to traverse through Malacca Strait, which is a narrow passage, and they can be choked. They're called choke points. India can really choke them on those choke points and harass their crude oil. 80% of their oil comes from Indian Ocean.
No, you say India can do it. Do we have the technology to do it right now?
You don't require technology. You position your ships and don't allow them to go.
Oh.
Your navy is very strong. You can have your ship, you can have submarine, you can harass them, you have to force them to alter their course. You see, what happens is that these oil, they are offloaded in various refineries of China's east coast, right? And that goes into the refinery and it makes product, and that product is used in whole of China, including their armed forces. So therefore, this supply, the continuous supply for crude oil is essential. And they have worked it out that in every day, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 tankers must reach. And if you, at a particular time, if they don't reach, suppose you delay them, you harass them en route, you delay them by a few hours, for 10 hours, 15 hours, it will ultimately begin to affect the product, which is going to run the whole country.
Are you saying that we're doing that right now, or it's a threat that we hold up?
We have the option. We have the option. We don't have to do it because there's no war. They haven't declared a war.
That's right.
And at sea, you can't do. Yeah,
but a submarine did surface in the Indian Ocean, somewhere in the Indian Ocean, a Chinese submarine.
That's okay.
See, near the Sri Lankan waters, actually.
That's right. They came, they birthed themselves because they have a very close equation with these things will happen. Because we talk about free and open sea. We say that sea is for all. If it is for all, it is for not only for you, it is for Chinese also. So they can also have a free passage. They have right to innocent passage. But during the passage, if they do some surreptitious, reconnaissance,
surveillance.
surveillance,
reconnaissance.
then we have to stop him. For example, we asked Sri Lanka government to throw this guy out, but they could
Yeah.
not because they had an agreement. But then we made sure that his surveillance equipment was, prevented from taking down the ideas. So I think that, this is a cat and mouse game really, and one has to do this.
And this joint defense production that we're talking about with the US, this technology transfer and all of that. Will it give us access to a technology where we can track uh, China? I mean, China is emerging as the biggest counter to America in the region, and we've obviously been, we are being propped up as a counter to China. So, are we going to be given the kind of technology that is necessary to keep China off balance in the Indian Ocean and up to the Malacca Straits?
I,
Is our Navy capable of doing it?
I
Or
look at it.
will it even be something that India would want to do?
I look at it very differently. We have identified that we cannot become a big power by importing weapon systems. No country in the world has become a superpower by importing weapons. So nor can India. So the Prime Minister Modi, has identified that self-dependence is the best way to do it. And that is why this, Atmanirbhar Bharat, as they say in Hindi.
That's right.
Okay. So for Atmanirbhar Bharat, we have identified the technologies that we don't have. Firstly, we don't have some basic technology of making jet engines. We don't make engines. We don't make jet engines. If you don't make jet engines, you can't make fighter aircraft. Even now, the
So that's
Tejas.
why so the new technology, which is which is going to be hopefully transferred to us, the F404, is the 044 is the one that could power the Tejas.
You're absolutely right. And that is why for us, first thing is to get the technology of the jet engine manufacturing, which the Americans have now agreed. So once it is being made under license or technology transfer, they will obviously supervise for some time. And thereafter, we will start making totally independently. So this F414 engine, once it start getting manufactured here, initially it will be joint manufacturing because you cannot transfer such technology overnight. You require infrastructure, blending, blade, knives, and then it has to go through hundreds of processes of, because it's a question of
Testing.
single engine aircraft. It's a question of human life. If you
That's
don't,
right.
you use aircraft. So it has to be very perfect. The margins are so little that you can consider there is no margin. Even the aircraft that we fly, fighter aircraft, they have very little margin. You cannot play around with this aircraft, endlessly. So this is one technology that we need very badly. Apart from that, there will be other technology transfers which will come under the ICET. What they call is, the emerging technology.
Technology. Yes,
So,
yes.
so US has realized that alone it cannot do what it wants to do, and therefore it has to make its partners and alliance country capable of fighting it, right? So they are going to give something to South Korea, they're going to give some to India. India occupies one hell of a big place, and
It does.
India can actually choke anybody. You see, God has not been equally kind to everybody. Any country which has a lot of oil, it doesn't have technology, like the Gulf countries. The countries who are very good militarily, they don't have enough oil. You take
Like us.
China, India, Japan, and South Korea. They all import oil from the same place. So India is sitting right in the middle of Indian Ocean, and it is actually overlooking the Indian Ocean all the time. There is no ocean in the world which is named after a country.
That's true.
It may not be India's ocean, but it is Indian Ocean. So this
It
is
is India's ocean.
it is our moral duty to make sure that the world trade does not get hampered because of one country doing some mischief. And
But
we must
hasn't it already done so? I mean, they've set up so many naval bases across the across the Indian Ocean. I mean, there's Djibouti, there's Seychelles, there's the Maldives. They tried the Maldives, there's Sri Lanka, and they even tried Myanmar and Bangladesh. So, I
Yeah.
mean, what is India doing about? I mean, you as someone who's been there and fought these various wars, it must be quite unsettling to see this ring fencing of India.
You're right. I mean, this is what we call the string of pearl strategy of
That's
China.
right.
But
Yeah.
let me tell you that they have independent thoughts. They are all sovereign countries. They will always do what is in their own interest. And any small country which is sandwiched between two big powers always follows the policy of hedging. When it
Hmm.
suits, it will show that he is friendly to other one. When it suits him, he will come here. Recently, Nepal's prime minister came to India. He had just come back from Beijing. So the
That's
point is,
right.
yeah, you keep the other country guessing, thinking that he's my friend. He's nobody's friend. He's just taking advantage to make his own country strong, take the economic advantage. So I think that should happen. We should not get worried about that. We should only be saying, what is my equation with you? My bilateral equation with Sri Lanka, my bilateral relation with Myanmar, they're all very good. My relation with Bangladesh, excellent. Just because buying weapon from China, because we don't sell weapons. We were never selling weapons. Now we are selling the weapons. Now they will see which is the better weapon or which is another thing is cheaper. The qualities are always suspect on the other side. But here you ask them to participate in the manufacturing process because a lot of it we are making. Now the government has removed all the restrictions on export. Now we have sold BrahMos missile to
Mm,
Philippines. And I
that's
believe
right.
I believe two more countries are likely to buy it, which is Indonesia and possibly Vietnam. Akash surface to air missiles is about to be sold. But we did not have a policy of selling anybody weapons, which is now this government has removed it. And rightly so, we have already crossed some 36,000 US dollars, 36,000 crores of export has already taken place in last financial year.
You spoke about hedging, the countries hedging their bets. Do you think India is also hedging its bets with by not provoking China in many ways, while aligning militarily, so to speak, with America, and also not alienating Russia by continuing to. I mean, although it suits us to buy cheap oil, we also cannot afford to alienate Russia, don't you think? I mean, we've
Well,
got these three big powers that we have to sort of balance.
if you look at the military balance, India is ahead of Russia now. Okay, both economically and militarily. As far as China is concerned, we have just outdone them in the population. So China has got a long-term worry as to the workforce is going to diminish. Also,
Their younger people, the number of young people is diminishing.
that's obviously because if there a single child policy is taking effect now.
That's
In
right.
fact,
Yeah.
they're already conscription in their army, right? And conscription does not help. Then they have a problem. They have a problem because they want to evict the US from the South China Sea, from the Pacific,
Exactly.
right?
That's what I
So
was going to
now
get to.
Taiwan is a hurdle in the first island chain. Sorry, and then this island chain, they will go into the Pacific, which is the second island chain. And that is why they are going to the Pacific Islands. So they have an immediate problem closer home. In Indian Ocean, they don't have a problem. They don't have any problem in Indian Ocean. They have a
That's
problem with
true.
India on the border, but they don't have any problem in the ocean. But India has an advantage that if they push too much on the border, we can do something in the Indian Ocean, which is not in the interest of that country. And therefore, India is too big and too powerful to be hedging. We're not hedging. We accept or we align with the thoughts of another country depending upon our interest. Our foreign policy is actually driven by the internal mechanics of the country, which it always be. It actually reflects India's internal dynamics in our foreign policy. For example,
What is our policy on Taiwan actually? I mean, uh, would India be sort of active enough? Would it be activated by the Americans? They if China gobbles up Taiwan as it did Hong Kong.
well, my own very personal opinion is that India is not committed to any of these. It is a problem between US and China, right? They have an act that if Taiwan is being forcibly taken, the US will come to assistance. It is an act. So it is for the US. What will India do? It is not India's war. India has said we identify one China policy. Okay.
We have said that, yes.
We have said that one China policy. But how will the situation unfold? The US cannot force India to do anything because we're not aligned. Alignment is something that where you have got a single boss and you have to listen to him. You don't, we are not in alliance. Alliance is Japan, alliance is South Korea, alliance is Australia, alliance is England. They are in alliance bound by a treaty. An alliance is a treaty, it's a legal document. We are not. We have said sorry. We are not. We are very independent. What we need from you is intelligence input, and we do have the what is called the 2+2 agreement, where we share intelligence on as required basis. And yes, they did help us during the Galwan crisis. They gave us intelligence on movement of the troops by their satellite picture.
So there's no quid pro quo really.
Not at
Saying
all.
that if we help you on the land border, you should help us in the maritime.
No, not at all. In fact, that is exactly what the think tanks in America are saying. Ashley Tellis has written that India is a bad bet for the US, right?
True.
But he will have to eat crow now that America is going to give you all the high-end technology. And I want to see what Ashley has to write after this. He's a friend of mine, but
he's made a good argument to say that India will not provoke China in any manner, and basically will keep its bullets to itself, because we do have the largest land border, and it's a hot border. It's not a cold border at all.
Yeah.
So I mean, and the Indian Army, we don't have the equipment, we don't have the manpower to fight China there.
No, I think that's all incorrect. Of course, we have equipment. Of course, we have manpower. We have got equal number of people on both sides of the border at the moment. It's a 1.2 million big army, and we have no other border to protect. And because we have equipment, what we don't have is intelligence gathering mechanism, right? Which America has been supporting us, by giving the satellite picture. But the time is not far that we may not need anybody now, right? One is a predator and one is our, in the world, everybody cannot do everything alone. Why is America looking for partners in Indo-Pacific? Because it has realized that it will never be able to do everything on its own. That is why you require alliance partners and friends, right? And therefore, this Quad has come into picture. That is why AUKUS has come into picture, because America alone does not have that asset. Many years ago, I'll tell you the year also, it was the year of 2007. Admiral Mike Mullen, who was the chief of naval operations of the US, he was in India. And he came on board the INS Virat. I was the fleet commander, and we were taking a walk. At the end of it, there was a press meeting where he said, to secure the entire world's oceans, navy of 1,000 ships is required, right? Now, a lot of press people, as they always do, they got it wrong. They thought that he says that the US Navy must have 1,000 ships. We issued a clarification. He said, no, the world requires 1,000 ships. And by the way, how right he was. Even today, as on today when I speak, world hasn't got 1,000 ships in any total navy. All navies of the world combined 1,000 ships. I mean, nahi hua, it has not happened.
how strong is the Indian Navy?
My God.
Can it? I mean, you were on warship and you were the head of the Western Command. What
Uh,
kind of what kind of power do we have to offset China in the Indian Ocean?
well,
Do we need more?
I can tell you that out of all the resident countries in the Indian Ocean, India is the most powerful country, right? And there are so many ways to take on China that I would be advising China not to attempt this. It will be disastrous for them. As far as the maritime power is concerned, you're fighting from far off from your home. Indian Ocean is my home. China is coming from outside. Now you will say, okay, they've got a base in Djibouti, they will have base in Gwadar, they will have base Hambantota.
Oh yes, I forgot about Gwadar. Yes, yes.
But do you know when you make a base, it becomes a geographical location to be taken out. It's a juicy target. You take the target before China starts anything, you take off those bases. Easy for us.
No, but China's connection with Pakistan is so strong.
Let it be.
I mean, and Gwadar is where I know when I used to track, all kinds of, this drug trafficking from Gwadar. That's where all the drugs come from and land on our west coast.
Oh, that is true. But
And
Pakistan,
they're small fishing vessels.
yeah, Pakistan being friend of China is no big deal because Pakistan doesn't have anything of its own. Nothing of its own.
It doesn't have a navy that can counter us.
It doesn't have anything, Neena, it doesn't have its own economy. It
Yeah,
is
that's
surviving.
true.
It is surviving on dole.
Yeah.
Or every weapon. What it will do is it is actually acting as a proxy for China. So what will happen on the name of China, on the name of Pakistan, actually China will be doing the war, right? But let's not forget we are not alone here. The Fifth Fleet is inside the Gulf. There are other countries, Western countries, who are always present at any given time. 34, 35 countries' warships are present in the Arabian Sea. At any given time, as I talk now, you'll find warships from nearly 35 countries in that area. Because this is an area where there is, on the land, there is full of hub of terrorism, Afghanistan, Pakistan. Also some parts in the Gulf, I believe that, there's fair amount of terrorism. Then a little bit above, you got Israel, who's, always at the time, on a nuclear war footing. We have two of nuclear neighbors, Pakistan and China. So this is a very hot area. And we have to survive in this area. And I'm telling you today, India is the most peaceful country. If you look at everybody else, what is happening? You have no impact here. There's no effect.
Should we be worried at all, Admiral, about Russia selling these MiG-35 attack helicopters to Pakistan? Is that a worry at all?
No, not at all.
I mean, are these obsolete? Is it because they're obsolete? And
no, they aren't obsolete. Pakistan requires something on the name of fighting the terrorism. They will buy it. And we know how to counter it because we have a very large number of them ourselves. Also, we have started making light combat helicopter ourselves. Pakistan can only buy so many, 5, 10, 15. We can produce 100 because it's indigenous. Everything is made here. So, I mean, to be very honest, except for this low intensity conflict, which we can actually sort out in few days, they're not a threat. They're not a big threat to us.
Pakistan is not as big a threat as China is.
Not at all.
Yeah. And going forward, I mean, Prime Minister Modi's visit is going to be majorly, based on defense and transfer of technology. Will that why did they, I mean, there's a lot of talk about how that transfer of technology took so long because they were worried that that technology would be accessed by other countries like Russia. Is that no longer a worry for the Americans? I mean, because this synergy that is now building between the US and India is unparalleled. I mean, it's something which we've not seen in the last even, though the nuclear agreement was signed by George W. Bush. I mean, it's taken all these years for
Yeah,
something to come through.
no, you're right, Nina. But obviously, the Americans have now realized that they were not right in that thinking. That if they give something to us, we will give it to Russia.
But didn't they also build up China as a tech giant?
If you see the US foreign policy, it has been topsy-turvy in this area. When India became independent, they were given an option to join the world had already divided into two camps, the
Cento and Cito.
communist West and then
Yeah.
North, East. And India declined to join any of this. When they declined, the Americans got very upset, right? And therefore, they included Pakistan in Seato, which later on became CENTO,
Yes,
because they did not want the communism to spread southwards and come to the warm water ports of Arabian Sea,
that's
right?
right.
They wanted to prevent the Russians from coming southwards, or rather the Soviets. And therefore, Pakistan became an ally. And Pakistan's internal dynamics, even now, the institutions of democracy are not existing because the military rule, half the time military rules, for a short time there is a civilian rule driven from the back end, from the back seat by the army.
But
So,
then this relationship with the US that we're now building, doesn't it make us part of an Asian NATO almost? It's a reconfiguration of that old CENTO and CETO into a new Asian. I mean, we're aligned really in a very anti-China alliance, so to speak. Even if we're not an ally, so to speak, we are a partner.
well, Nina, you have to look at like this. Why was NATO made? The NATO came into being because the world had divided into two, in the Cold War, absolutely two sides. One is a communistic country, other one is the free world. And India decided that we will be in none of the camps. And non-aligned movement became a big movement. And therefore, India was being punished by the Americans frequently, not knowing,
That's true.
yeah. And that is why nothing was coming. When you said that, why nothing was happening because Americans had a wrong perception of India.
So,
And
what is the biggest takeaway that we'll have now from Prime Minister Modi's visit? What do you feel will be the big one? That this my unfortunately my last question.
yeah, but I mentioned right in the beginning that India has been identified as the key partner to maintain peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific, specifically in the Indian Ocean. And
Yeah,
India will become, the peace provider, stability provider to everybody in the Indian Ocean region, and possibly in the larger Indo-Pacific, if all the transfer of technology and the capability build up. Niche technology is required. You require space, you require artificial intelligence, you require cybersecurity, you require so many things. Hopefully, slowly that will happen, because if Americans are worried about Chinese threat, the only country which can actually prevent from China going berserk is India, right? Population, willpower, and look at the capability that we have already. And we have to develop our indigenous capability, and that is biggest takeaway, that our indigenous platform and the weapon systems manufacturing, latest ones, it will get a very big boost.
yeah. Thank you very very much, Vice Admiral Sinha. It's been a pleasure and it's been very very informative. Thank you very much for this great discussion. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Take care.
Namaskar.